One day, well, some years ago, I walked into this store and applied for a job, and it changed my life. Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go. This is Snohomish, Washington. This little town by the banks of the Snohomish River was an important river town. It then became a vacant town after the lumber industry largely folded around here and was revived as a major antique center. There are some 400 antique dealers. You'll see shops on both sides of the street. This is First Street, and the reason they all came here is because of the big Anchor Mall, which is right up the street that we're about to turn on here. Up in the distance there, the beige building in the background is Star Center Antique Mall. 5 floors of antique shopping, the biggest antique mall in the Northwest, and this is where we are headed today. Hey everybody, it's George the Antique Nomad, and I am at Star Center Mall. One day, well, some years ago, I walked into this store and applied for a job, and it changed my life and turned me into the antique nomad that I am today. Star Center Mall is the largest antique mall in the Northwest. It is in Snohomish, Washington. It is a wonderful old town. This is one of the newer buildings. This town was one of the oldest in Washington, founded in 1859. And Star Center Mall was built in 1926 as an armory. And in 1980, it was turned into a bunch of shops. In 1982, my one-time business partners rented a space here and opened the first antique mall in the Northwest and had about 30 dealers. And it was a big new phenomenon. And over the years, they built it into an amazing business. A lot of things have changed over the years, but it has been a survivor. It's been here almost 40 years. It's pretty amazing. We sell things in it now that were brand new and would not have been allowed in the mall when it was first opened. So times change. We're going to go in and take a look around. Now, I don't know how much of this I'm going to get to show you today because this place is vast, but I'm going to at least get started and show you a little of it because I think we're going to keep on coming back here. They have just about everything. You see dinnerware there. You see these really great California pottery figurines here. Look at the double horses. So you get 50s kitsch. You get antique kitchen clocks, regulator clocks, wall clocks. Here we have a space that's got a bunch of fishing reels in it. Next door you've got a revolving motion lamp, and some kids stuff, and then a bunch of woodworking planes. So you never know what you're going to find. Here's a really old one with the wood turning knobs there. You just never really know what you're going to find in Star Center because it is such a big store. Look at this cute display. All of these mechanical valentines that open up, and some of them are pop-ups, some of them have wheels that turn. They have these great honeycomb papers that come out. Some of them are rather old. You see the one in the corner there that looks like a gypsy. She's a die cut. A lot of these were made in Germany before the First World War. And then between the First and Second World Wars, they come out again. And they are just so sweet and very collectible. Down here, these are Victorian lace valentines, so these are even a little bit older. And these would pop up as well. Really neat collection to see. Now, they don't sell like they used to, but Royal Daltons have been a mainstay of Star Center Mall. We're only an hour south of the Canadian border, and under ordinary circumstances, when the border is open, we get a lot of people who collect English china and are Anglophiles. But another thing we get, of course, are things specific to the Northwest. Here is a Seattle, Washington guide from about 1909 when the first World's Fair happened, and then a Jim Beam bottle of the Space Needle from the 1962 World's Fair. These are something neat we see on the West Coast sometimes. They were quite bawdy in their day. These were by an artist named Dorothy Kindell, and she has the very stately clothed women, and as they drink a little more, they eventually strip, as you can see on the left there. Hopefully this is abstract enough that I won't be demonetized. This set of 5 mugs is $120. Believe it or not, that's a pretty good price for these. They're hard to find in good condition. It's hard to find a big set like this, and they used to sell for about double that. And here's a very good collection of Florence figurines. When I was a little kid, I remember my grandmother had this green one in the middle, who I believe is called Delia. And I remember picking it up, and on the bottom it said Florence, and I said, "Who's Florence?" And she laughed, but it turns out there really was a Florence. Her name was Florence Ward, and she had a lot of loss, and she was very sad about that, but she was quite a good ceramicist. And so she decided to surround herself with happy people, including Rhett Butler, who you see there in the middle. So in the 1940s, she started making these very sweet figurines, all hand-painted earthenware, and they're very good quality. You'll see prices on these ranging from about $15 to $100 typically. There's some very elaborate ones where they have women seated on couches that are more. Now for you antiquarian book people, they have a book dealer here, and they have a lot of Victorian and early 1900s, including some of the Oz books. You see there John Doe and the Cherub. That's an L. Frank Baum. You also see Ozma of Oz in here. The older Oz books, especially the early editions, can be rather valuable. Here we have Hula Moons by Don Blanding. That's the blue one. That's somebody I collect. Cannery Row by John Steinbeck. One thing to look for, speaking of Steinbeck, we had an estate sale where we had a book called Cup of Gold by him, and it was in a yellow cover, and it turned out to be worth $500 because it was printed in 1929 and the Depression hit and the publisher went out of business. They only printed 500 of them. Then they were reprinted by another publisher in a different color, and those are worth about 20 bucks. There is your Hager Halloween pumpkin from the 1970s. These have always been popular, and it's got the good Hager mark on the bottom. Priced at $38. They really have gone up to about that over the last several years. So this case has a lot of Bakelite jewelry. There are several jewelry dealers in this mall and a couple on this floor. This has some really interesting pieces because they've got black. Black Bakelite is hard to find and hard to test. It does not actually respond to the Simichrome 409 tests for formaldehyde like the other Bakelite pieces do. And yes, Bakelite does have formaldehyde in it. That's part of how it was made. It came in many different colors. It's actually Catalin, technically. Bakelite was the black and brown, and then the Catalin was a slight reformulation that allowed colors to be made. Very popular in 1930s and 40s dime stores, and really popular with collectors now, especially carved pieces. Look at that neat orange on wood pin there. That would be from World War II. A lot of the Bakelite pieces came out because there was not access to crystals during the Second World War. And you'll see some other bits down here. Prices on little earrings and small rings can be as low as $15 to $25, but you can get some multi-layered, multicolored pieces in deep carving that are very expensive. And you can top them off with a really great pair of pink cat's eye glasses from the 1950s. Those are priced pretty well. I might have to take those to Florida to sell. I think they belong down there. One thing that's really good to see in Star Center Mall is that there's some younger dealers who are coming in with things that are of appeal to a younger generation of collectors. A lot of these are silver era comic books, meaning after the ones that were 10 cents and under, you know, the 1930s and 40s stuff. In the 60s and 70s, we see new emphasis on new superheroes like Ms. Marvel, a little more appeal to girls who have grown up to be women who collect comics as well. On the next level, we have Fantastic Four, The Unknown. There's a lot of interest in this, especially because of Marvel reviving so many of the characters for their movie series. And prices on these are pretty reasonable now, but interest is growing, and it's a good area to be looking for currently if you're a reseller. And around the corner, there's a whole bunch of Star Wars and other space-related characters from the late 70s and early 80s. This is a very hot area of collecting. And you see the original Kenner store display sign. Kenner was a fairly obscure small toy maker, and no one else wanted the contract because nobody saw Star Wars coming. And so they got the contract, and boy did it make that company. And there's a lot of 1977 to 83 era Star Wars items in here. That's the golden age of Star Wars collecting, and the prices have really shot up on a lot of these. Definitely something to look for when you're out there. Then there's another case with a bunch of old Disney, Bambi banks and wall pockets, the Pluto, which is a wall pocket that's a very hard one to find, lollipop jar with Donald Duck from the 1950s or 60s from Japan. These are a lot of neat older pieces. These would do very well in Florida if they were to come with me, but they do not belong to me, so they will have to find their buyer here. But maybe someone who's watching this in Florida and likes this sort of stuff can call. I'm sure they would be happy to ship. Now, I had to show this because this is a collection of felt pennants from the late 70s and early 80s, including my beloved Seattle Sounders, who are leading the Western Division and have made the playoffs this year for the 12th straight year. And I have that pennant from back in the 70s when I was a kid and fell in love with them. And this is my space, the front end of my space. I'm going to show you quite a bit of what I put in because after being gone so long on the hiatus, I had to get in some new stock. That's a Royal Vienna vase in the back, and then a 1960s era Capodimonte box. The glass there is Sabino, the opalescent. That's very collectible. Yvonne Thrifty Rich finds that a lot and shows it off. I brought in a bunch of face powder and talc tins from the 20s and 30s, and I just thought they were really pretty and well done and not expensive, but they're starting to be interest now. These pieces are Royal Gouda or Gouda, and that's from a little later time, 1930s era, with the flowers, as opposed to the earlier Art Nouveau pieces like the ashtray there next to it. And you can see the difference in terms of it's almost like tile work, the earlier painting on the Art Nouveau pieces that they made. The print on the left there is a fox. I've got several of those. And the doll on the right belongs to my friend and partner in the booth, Stephanie Conant, who is a dealer in vintage fashion. There's also this very nice 1960s floral encrusted Italian bottle. And another little talc tin. This is Cody. That's a little more expensive because Cody is a good name, and that's from the 1930s. And then on this side, I wanted to do fall colors, and I had to feature this funky, cool owl lamp. It's just so great. It's the height of 60s, 70s kitsch. Look at those great big eyes. This is a big angelfish by Blue Mountain Pottery out of Canada in the green splash. This was a very popular design in the 80s. And then in here, here's some of Stephanie's vintage fashion. She's got some more formal wear coming in for holiday and reds and sweaters and coats, things that are appropriate to the season. This little blue number just came in. And down there are a bunch of Dala, or as we say, Dale of Norway sweaters. They designed for the World Cup teams. There's the Bergen 2000 edition. The editions for certain years in Norway are the most valuable, and they can sell for $150 resale. So look for these things if you are a resale buyer when you go to clothing stores and thrift shops. I think this thing is really cool. It's a little faded, but this is from the 1930s. Those fabulous Mix Masters with the jadeite bowls. This is what the Sunbeam Mix Master originally was housed in as a store display. Let's try to open it up there. So all the attachments would be in here, and then there'd be a Mix Master sitting on top of this. Look at the great graphics. It's priced at $4.95, but it really did everything. It slices, shreds, grates, chops, grinds, peels, freezes, grinds more, opens cans. What more could you want? Star Center Mall still maintains a big collector's reference book area. So if there's some older collector's reference book that you are missing, they may have it. And this is how I learned so much about so many different things. There's some really interesting things like Clarice Cliff, who was this phenomenal woman who did this crazy bizarre ware, the Art Deco pottery. And it also talks about Susie Cooper and Charlotte Reed and some of the women who really got started in England in the Art Deco movement. Cowan pottery, which is a favorite of mine. Over here we've got a lot of things on glass like paperweights, Red Wing art pottery, Shawnee. I mean, these books really helped me learn so much about so much, because generally the people who wrote them, like this fellow who I met, Jack Chipman, was so knowledgeable about California pottery, and actually this book sold over 20,000 copies, which for a collector's reference is really good. This is the 2005 update. Collector's reference books are something that are not really being widely done anymore. But look at all the different categories that it talks about. All those oddball things that you're not sure how to identify. Pricing may be out of date, but the information can be really useful. When I first set off on my own as a dealer, Franciscan Desert Rose was the first thing I really started to sell. I bought a huge collection and sold all the unusual pieces. Well, the prices have come down, but it's still the most popular dinnerware pattern ever made. And you can get a turkey platter for under $100 now. It used to be that would have been 200 and some. The soup tureen that's $250 is hard to find. They used to be $500 to $600. So if you like these sorts of things, the nice thing is it's all hand painted, but this can go in the oven. It can go in the microwave. It's actually very usable. And the prices are way lower than they used to be. So it's a great time to start collecting if you find Franciscan ware attractive, which I certainly always have. I know Jeffrey at Real Nifty Vintage is a big fan of the Ivy pattern, which was used on the set of I Love Lucy. Look how striking this silhouette of the chieftain on the horseback is. It's gesso. This would have been handmade with the arrows and everything being laid by hand. I think they did a very nice job from about 1930. It's only $55. I think for what it is, it's a very good price. There's a lot of showcases, lots of small things. One that I'll point out here that is becoming more popular are Persian inlaid pieces, and Indian from the subcontinent of India, inlaid pieces where they use bone, and they do it similar to the tile work that's done in that part of the world. It's much like the Italian micro-mosaic jewelry where all those little pieces had to be laid in by hand. The fact that it's $70, considering that it would probably take 40 or 50 hours of labor to make it, is really quite surprising. It seems like a bargain. And because we're near the border, we do find interest in coronation collectibles here. The royal family has certainly had its ups and downs, but when you get back into the era of the royals who were more exalted in their time, there's still interest. A particularly nice one is this Majolica piece with Queen Victoria in the back from 1897. That was for her 60th anniversary, which I believe was the Diamond Jubilee. And there's Prince Charles when he was just a little boy when the Queen was ascending to the throne. I'd like to show a little more in my space. I just brought the rugs in today. These are Persian and Tabriz. It just makes the space seem more complete. Some Art Deco candlesticks I've recently gotten. And on the Kentucky Highway sales, I found this great Fenton milk glass swung ewer. So I had to put that out. You may also recognize the block print of Mount Fuji that I bought outside of Cincinnati, and I cleaned it up and I thought it came out very nicely. It's here for sale in the Northwest, where I think there'll be appreciation of these sorts of things. Let me show this little shrug that my friend has. Isn't that cute? With all the micro beading from the 1940s. Just a beautiful piece. I think this piece of late Victorian furniture is just marvelous. It's a secretary desk. It's heavy oak with tiger rays, or pith rays as they're called. And It's got the glass cabinet underneath, the fold-out plateau with the fittings where all the little things for your letters and things can go. And then look at this great mirror on top with the figural griffins. This little English piece of furniture is a little more economical though, and very cute. And then as we go in under the very large Blanco Amber Genie bottle, we have a few shelves of kitchenware. This nice European marble top sideboard has a nice beveled mirror, and it's priced under $300. The prices on marble furniture are very good right now, and yet I see marble coming back into fashion with people in the interior decorating business, so it makes me think that there may be a market for this. A hand-carved house that is a wall shelf with a bunch of little elves and piglets and other little critters on it. Some uranium glass here. It's kind of a hodgepodge, but I do at least have it clean and somewhat organized after it having been sadly left to itself for 6 months during the pandemic. So thank goodness I've been able to get back and at least put it in some semblance of order. Just put in the deer head today. There is a large case of mainly Northwest Native American basketry, Alaskan and Salish, as well as the yay rug with the corn people on top of the case there. That's from the Navajo area. A lot of blue and white porcelain. This is Vienna Woods and Blue Danube. A lot of people recognize these patterns because they were produced in Japan in the 1960s through about the 1990s. Also, I brought in a lot of Waterford Crystal because we're getting near the holidays and people do buy Waterford stemware. It's the one clear pattern that I still have good customers for. And I wanted to show this guy. He's really cool. This is from a rooftop. This will date to somewhere around 1890 or 1900. I know in one of my videos I showed old redware chimneys from roofs, but this one is a rooster and he would have been a cover so the rain didn't get in down one of your roof vents from about 1900. Such a neat thing. He's a little imperfect, but he's only priced at $225 because of that, and I think he's just really special. And then underneath, I thought this was an interesting little table, and you could certainly call it a cocktail table because in the base it has a chalice. This is just a nice little thing to have by your chair or on top of another piece of furniture if you need extra height in a display. And it's priced at only $45. And then upstairs here, I have a little display window, and I decided that since Christmas is coming and I had a consignor who had a whole lot of Department 56, that I would just bring it out in the boxes and make a Christmas window this way. Now, I generally am not big on recent edition pieces, but then when I was picking them up, I saw they had this. The original Snow Village Collector's album, and I realized that most of these pieces were purchased earlier in time, and that they have actually been out for 45 years. So, since these were discontinued, primarily, I thought that was legitimate, and I know that there is a collector market for them. So while I'm thinking of it, please comment in the space below here and also hit the thumbs up button to like this video. If you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button below. Also hit the bell below to be notified of new videos coming every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And thank you so much for following along. Let's go back to this video. This space has a Western feel, especially with the racks of boots. And these are all vintage. And more over here, you have lizard skin. The prices are good on these. They start at about $50. And a lot of these boots cost double and triple that new in the store. They also have leather belts, and then a whole case of various Western Americana. Here's your Star Wars figures, your originals from the 1977 to 83 period from the original movies, And boy, they've just got a great selection of them here. And they even have these little walkers with R2-D2 and R5-D4. Now, elegant depression glass was always a mainstay here at Star Center, and this dealer is an old-time dealer who's been here a long time. They always have had great stuff. They are having a big sale because prices have come down, so they are taking that into account with big price reductions, but they have some really neat pieces here. And then in the middle of it, just for fun, an old railroad lock and key. The key is the important part. There's lots of these locks running around with no key. Here's some more pieces. This is this beautiful color in green from Paden City, the party line, and also this Cupid etch here. See the Cupids in there? Isn't that pretty? And this piece is priced at about $95. And then they also have regular depression glass. This is green open lace, a very nice pattern, and yes, these do fluoresce. They are uranium glass. The Westmoreland set is nice here. So a lot of good pieces in this space. Okay, one of these holds pencils, and the other one with his big mouth open sharpens pencils. I've never seen him before. He's just great. This is Japanese out of the 50s. And I've got to say that's very clever, and they're only $20 for the pair. I think that's wonderful. Behind it is a very scarce, short-lived pattern of Roseville called Forella that came out in the 1930s just in time for the Depression, so nobody bought it. But it's a very stately, attractive piece with a nice mottled glaze. And then behind a lovely Art Deco dancing woman flower frog for only $28. That's a very good price as well. These 1970s wind-up toys, you've got Woodstock in the back there. You've got the Christmas boots. These are little walkers. You wind them up and they walk. They're the plastic version of these tin ones that walked and hopped from the 1960s. The tin ones were pretty cheaply made and broke fairly easily. The plastic ones were really cheaply made and broke fairly easily. So the fact that these work is what makes them collectible, and they're only $5 each. If you find these out there in the wild and they actually work, they're worth getting. I talk a lot about promotional cars, and here's a whole bunch in a row. You have a Corvette and then a bunch of Thunderbirds from the 50s and 60s. And then more Corvettes. They have their original boxes from the 1970s. A 1955 Dodge with the two-toning there. And a Nash promotional car. That one's all metal. The ones up until the early to mid-50s were all metal, and that's a little harder to find. Very collectible. Here's a collection of banks. You've got cast iron and pot metal. You've got everything from the 1971 cash box to the big old bison in the back there. The ceramic Muscle Man is out of the 70s. Haven't seen that one before. Fido is a plastic coin bank from the 70s. You've got the old Ham's Bear Beer Bank. That one is rather collectible and should price in the 200 range, and in fact they do have 225 on it. And then this one's a Nodder, the dog with his tongue sticking out. Hard one to find. Old advertising one for rival dog food. The Happy Pig. There are so many different varieties of banks. It's a really fun thing to collect, and I have to say, if you have a kid or a grandkid and you're a little worried about them becoming a spendthrift, getting them a bank when they're little that's fun, that they can fill with coins, and then showing them how after they fill it with the coins they get to go get something that they really would like, and it's their choice because it's their money, is a great way to encourage saving. I did it with my godson, and he's in his 20s now, and he is a very good saver and frankly probably makes more money than I do. Now typically these old beer trays from the 60s go for about $25, but this one is a little harder to find because it's got the barbershop quartet and it's Pabst Blue Ribbon. PBR has enjoyed renewed popularity. For some reason it's become the everyman's beer, or the I would like to appear as if I am an everyman beer, and so that one's priced at $46, and I think that's actually probably fair. And the other one that's, of course, very popular is the Hamspear Bear, anything with him on it. He was the first cartoon character to be used strictly for advertising. Look how pretty that lake in Minnesota is. The land of sky blue waters. And then after you've had a few Hamspears, you will be like this. There's a couple of neat pieces of furniture in the hallway for sale that I should show you too. This is an old Russian trunk. This is 17th century, so we're looking at something that could be as much as 400 years old. One way you can tell that is look how far the pegs are sticking out. It was peg joined, and the wood has shrunk so much over the years that there's that much protruding now. You can also see a little evidence of wormwood. It's a neat piece. $350. It seems very reasonable. This old cart is also a neat primitive looking item from about 1900. This here looks like any other rocker, but this is actually a Boston rocker. This is quite old. It's a Hitchcock style, and this should date from sometime around 1820. So something that predates settlement in this area, and that's always interesting to see for us out west. These are neat little advertising pieces. Anything from the old Stork Club in New York is very popular. It was such a famous flesh pot back in the time. This old cigar holder is a display from about 1890. And then behind you have an advertisement for black and white Scotch whiskey with the Scotty and the Westie together. People who are in their 40s and 50s, who are prime collecting years now, can buy things from their childhood. There's Pamela Lee Anderson, C.J. Parker, Ocean Lifeguard. You've got Western Ken, Sport and Shave Ken. He could actually shave his beard. Ken was allowed to have a beard in the 70s because it was that era. All-Star Ken, Walk Lively Ken. And then you've got a bunch of Smokey the Bear. Smokey is very popular. The ceramic piece here is hard to find. That's going to be from the 1950s. The plastic and plush pieces are a little more commonly seen, but you'll see even the ones from the 1980s are selling for in the $35 range and up. That is because Smokey is one of the most popular characters in, I guess you could call it advertising, although it really is specifically for fire prevention. Smokey was based on a bear cub that was badly burned in a wildfire in New Mexico in the 1930s, and he was rescued and became their mascot. And they used publicity about that to try to get people to be more careful about putting out their fires and not starting wildfires. So we're kind of entering the back door. This is called the court level. And you can see in here that they have furniture and taxidermy and cool stuff along the walls. They have a nice showcase here full of goodies. The caribou mount up here, this lovely guy used to belong to me. He has sold. Sales have actually been going fairly well since the mall reopened after the crisis of earlier this year. This area here has a bunch of Elton Bennett. This is something we see in the Northwest. He was a silkscreen artist who was very prolific in the 1960s and 70s, did a lot of things that were sort of misty looking Northwest scenes, and very collectible now. And speaking of handmade furniture and peg joinery, here's another very impressive piece, and it's unbelievably under $500. This is from the 1820s. This is French Provincial, and it really is French Provincial. It was made in France, in the provinces, and you can see how the inlay is all done by hand. They've matched it as best as they could with what they had. You can also see the pegging in the doors. That indicates the age. Look at the escutcheons and how they're hand formed. They're not exactly identical on both sides. And then you open it up and it has a lot of shelving. The price reflects the fact that people are not really buying large pieces of furniture right now like they were, and a lot of the big houses that would accommodate something like this are being built with a lot of extra built-in walk-in closets and cupboard space, so there isn't demand for these like there used to be. But boy, there should be, because what a beautiful piece it is. Look how this is all hand done here as well. So hopefully somebody who understands what a remarkable piece this is will come along and buy it. Now here's a bunch of interesting stuff for Northwest taste because we are where Boeing is a huge employer, the biggest single employer in the area still. Here's a desk model for Hughes Air West. That was Howard Hughes Airline. These desk models are things that were given out to Boeing executives and to customers of Boeing over the years. And these desk models sell from anywhere from about $25 to $225, depending on the airline and the size. And then we've got a Tonka Jet. We've got these neat old helicopters from the 1950s and 60s by companies like Hubley. And then a bunch of little die-cast planes. I remember some of these from when I was a kid. And prices on these are going to be in the $15 to $20 range as well. I like anything that I see that is Concorde because, of course, the Concorde is no longer flying. And then down here, you're going to get into some Corgi and Dinky, which are very popular lines that were made in England originally. This particular one here is really good, the Sikorsky Helicopter with the original box in mint condition. Priced at $150. It's from 1957. Hard piece to find. And then there's a Buck Rogers piece here from the 1930s. And down below we have some battery-operated and friction drive airlines as well. Well, someone should let these dogs out because there are a bunch of them. Everything from this neat Victorian pipe holder in the back, the oak with the dogs with the hoop in their mouths, the old bulldogs, that's priced at $138. There's Royal Dalton, there's Beswick. Beswick was very good at modeling the things in a way that was very true to the actual nature of the animal. Royal Copenhagen, you see the little dachshunds here. A Will George Great Dane. Will George is a California maker, and they did very good quality things the Great Dane is almost never seen. We go past the Beswick and some Morton's pottery, which was made in the United States, and we are suddenly in spaghetti land. Spaghetti poodles galore, and even spaghetti Afghans. Never saw a spaghetti Afghan before. It's my first time. We're fortunate that Mel Blanc's son was able to actually take over and do so many of the voices for the Looney Tunes characters and the Warner Brother cartoons. This is a very sad moment here when Mel Blanc died in 1989, and this one is called Speechless. Mel Blanc actually was a Northwesterner. He was originally from Portland, Oregon. Now, these may not look like what you think of with Hull pottery, but Little Red Riding Hood was a very popular line that Hull pottery brought out in 1947. There's the wall pocket there. You've got a salt and pepper shaker, a cream and sugar. They did cookie jars. Here's the milk pitcher. They are still very collectible and popular. They were reproduced badly. It's easy to tell the reproductions. They just don't look right. You'll notice with the Little Red Riding Hood, the decals vary. The poppy here is one of the more common ones. If you find the ones with the poinsettias, those are very collectible, and they do go for more money as a result. And then there's a shelf here of Peanuts collectibles. Peanuts collectibles are starting to really be sought after as well, because it's been a while now since Charles Schulz left us. And a lot of these were made in the 1960s and 70s, and that's the era of yesterday's children who are collectors today. And then we should give equal time to cats. Most of these Siamese are Japanese, but the Beswick also did cats. The orange one in the middle is an example of that. Royal Dalton did the Persian there. So if you're an animal lover and you can't have a pet, or you want something for your pet to bat around on the countertop, I would recommend getting museum gel or quake hold to stop that problem. But here are some really fun figures that you can have so that you can be an animal lover, but these don't eat very much. In the center there, the black ones with the pink bows, those are Royal Copley. This is one last thing I wanted to show you. This is a fantastic wall filled with First World War era military photos in mainly convex frames. Some of the frames are very elaborate and worth a lot of money in and of themselves. There are some particular ones that are worth